Okay. Good morning. We're just waiting for a couple more minutes just to see if we've got any stragglers joining in, and then we'll get kicked off. Just to give a little bit of introduction about what we're going to do today. This is our first webcast. Going forward, JSP is going to be doing a number of different webcasts. We're attempting going to one a month, so this is going to be the first. My colleague Harry here will be taking on the second one next month, which is going to be based on the Power Cap Infinity, and then we're just going to kind of go with it as see how we go. Any requests, let us know. Anything you might want to see, we'll go for it. Good start. Okay. Okay. Everything will be recorded, and we will be posting it on our socials now and again. And again, if there's any requests, can we share with customers?
Yeah.
We will be able to share recordings as well. So if there's anything that you want on here, we can then keep you updated with that as well. Okay. So sharp edge awareness is what we're going to cover this morning. Presented by myself, Jamie Appleton, part of the business development team. I specifically look after everything height safety, so product range, etc. Anything technical, anything testing, all comes by myself. And this is my colleague Harry.
Hi, I'm Harry, the newest member of the business development team. Been here 3 months now and really enjoying it.
Good, yeah. Okay. So it's going to be about 20 minutes of talking. We're going to allow some points of questions at the end, so feel free to start typing those in whenever you want to, and we'll look all of those at the very end of the session. So first of all, what we're going to cover, we're just going to look at basic understanding between different types of fall arrest, personal fall protection equipment. We'll include a little bit about the difference between the fall arrest and restraint. Again, we're not going to cover too much in detail. Specifically, then we will look at different types of products. So specifically aims at different horizontal use and sharp edge tested products, what differences are between those, just to give you a little bit of an idea of how these work, what those look like, and like the differences between the two, really, because you will notice throughout the session they look very similar, but at the end of the day they are going to do different things. And then finally we will look at how different factors, etc., can influence the need for sharp edge tested products. So what we're talking about there is going to look at fall factors, we're going to look at angles, we're going to look at potentially what you might fall through for the need of sharp edge use. Okay. Okay, so restraint and fall arrest, as I say, I'm going to briefly cover this. We've done it in past sessions before. And basically the way they work is when we're working at height, we tend to be using two types of personal fall protection equipment, and that might be restraint or it might be fall arrest. So restraint, as you see my man there walking, he walks to the edge of the platform, the lanyard restrains him from going any further. So it's always the safest port of call. When we're working at height, restraint will stop, will take a fall out of the equation altogether. Okay, that's for the man on the other side there. Fall arrest, he's gone too far, his lanyard's too far, he's in a fall arrest situation. He's actually gone over an edge and been put into a fall arrest situation. Okay. So how that might work in a workplace here, we've got a little video of the difference between restraint and fall arrest. Just to quickly describe what's happening is we've got a roof edge, we've got first port of call is getting to the edge, two edges, front and side. The restraint lanyard's going to stop the user from going over the edge. We're then going to flip that into the same scenario where we're now in a fall arrest situation. The user will go to the corner of the roof, which means obviously they can fall off either side and they may need a fall arrest lanyard. So there we can see the restraint lanyard, the user can only get to those edges, but you can't go any further than that. Obviously noticing the point here that I will not be able to access the corner of the roof. So then we move into We want to access that corner, but obviously we're identifying that we can actually fall off either side of the corner, which would put us in a fall arrest situation. Okay. See the user's fallen, and then this is just describing. Yeah. Okay. So, different types of fall arrest. I've got 3 products on the screen. Just something to think about that we will come back to later on. I've got a question in the top right there of, out of the 3 products on the screen, which ones do you think can be used over a sharp edge? So just something to come back to later on. Say those specific 3 products and the pictures being shown, which one of those do you think can be used over a sharp edge? So just to describe a little bit about them. First of all, Harry, you grab me the fall arrest lanyard. Thank you very much. If we could just drop the slides a second. Okay, so fall arrest lanyard. We always have something called the shock absorbing pack, which you can see here. The way this lanyard worked, as shown in the video, is on deployment. So on impact, this shock absorber will come out. So what happens is all this webbing inside here has been all sewn together and compressed into what we call the shock absorbing pack. On impact, that webbing will tear apart and deploy, as we saw on the video. And basically what we have is 1.75 meters of webbing that can come out. Okay. Obviously, we need to think about the total length of the lanyard, think about our heights, which we'll go on to show in a minute. Okay. Another type of fall arrest is we have a rope and grab system. So if you can just grab that one from Harry here, just take that off there. So you hold it up so we can see it. That's it. Just hold it up like that for me. So the way these work, the user will move it up and down the rope. So you can see that there. If I was to slip or fall, that will come onto the rope and it will catch them a lot quicker. Okay. You see people going up and down ladders with these attached all the time. Just a nice way to reduce the fall distance of that. Okay. Catches them nice and quick. And then the third type of fall arrest we have is something that we call a fall arrest block. I'm sure you've all seen these. If you could just hold that for me, Harry. I'm just going to yank it down so the user moves freely with the wire. As soon as they slip or fall, be sure for the head that will lock off. The user won't go any further than that. Okay. Back to that one shortly. If we could just pop the slides back up for me. Okay, so we can see it on the screen there. 3 types of fall arrest, obviously defined by their standards. So just as a reference, the fall arrest lanyard is 355, all retractable lines are 360, and rope and grab systems are 353-2 for temporary. Okay, so obviously I noticed I talked about the fall distances between the 2. So obviously the fall arrest lanyard, you're going to fall a lot further than you are on the fall arrest block. So the fall arrest lanyard, you can see I've got a user there. We have to account for A, B, C. And what that's accounting for is, first of all, the user's in a full factor 2 situation, so he's connected at foot level. So first of all, he's going to fall the length of his lanyard, which in this case would be 2 meters. The point of impact, the shock pack will then deploy. That shock pack potentially is 1.75 meters, so we obviously have to allow for that. So we're at 3.75 meters. We then always think about our heights of the users. So obviously we've got 2 of us here. Obviously Harry's a lot taller than I am, but we always allow for 2 meters per person. And then just a bit of safety, which you can see in the C. C, we always allow for 1 meter of full clearance beneath us. We want that extra bit of safety just to allow for, so obviously you're not getting close to the bottom whatsoever. The final figure for fall arrest lanyard is 6.75 meters. So we've all seen these lanyards being used. Don't always see them being used at that sort of height. Obviously, we might hit the ground before the lanyard can actually do what it needs to do. So on the other side, obviously, to counter that is the fall arrest block. So we just have A and B to think about here. So we saw how quickly the block actually locks, works like a seatbelt. So the user would step off, he would fall. He's going to fall probably 1.5 meters. We then think about meter of clearance, and we think we roughly allow for the user's height. It comes out about 3.5 meters, so it's nearly half the full distance between the two. Okay. So just to open up the little question, feel free to comment a number. So from the three products that I've just shown, how many of those do you think can be used over a sharp edge? Just give you one minute to just pop a number in, 1, 2, or 3, or 0, whatever you think. We'll explain what they do. Okay. So we're not trying to trick anybody here at all. We're just going to show and then show the differences. Okay. Okay, so we got some numbers coming through. So we've noticed got a few ones here. The actual answer is 0. So none of these products can actually be used over a sharp edge as they are. Okay, interesting to think about. Out of curiosity, I suppose, people, what you're thinking is, which of the ones would you think could be used, and why? And we'll potentially come back to the questions at the end to what we think that would be. Okay. So the reason that none of them can be used is really to do with the standards that they've been tested to. So recently, in the last 2 or 3 years, there's a group called VG11, and they have now introduced a standard where these products are tested to be used over a sharp edge, which we're going to explain in a minute. Okay, so Harry, if you can grab the standard fall arrest and the sharp edge fall arrest for me. Okay, so we'll drop these down so you can look up closer in detail in a minute, but just to explain what we've got on the screen. Obviously, these two products are very similar, don't they? Very, very similar indeed. Obviously, the one on the left with the green and the black, that's our sharp edge tested lanyard. And then obviously on the other side, we just have our standard. So when I joined the company 11 years ago now, there wasn't such thing as a sharp edge tested lanyard. That is very much a new thing into the industry. So when we started learning all that time ago, you would be assuming that the rope would be okay over an edge. And obviously after testing, after these new tests were introduced, it's not so much that they aren't going to be used, it's more a case of the force that they then create over a sharp edge. So the standard fall arrest lanyard, the rope is a little bit thinner. Obviously you can see on the picture the shock pack's a lot smaller. And that's just where the extra standard comes into play, the extra strength. Eventually, I'd imagine in the next 5-10 years, I'd imagine the sharp edge will just be the standard lanyard that's introduced to the market. So there's no confusion or anything like that. But as it is currently, as you can see on the picture, the difference is that extra VG11 standard. So for the lanyard itself, it's 11-074. And that is what the sharp edge tested lanyard will be. So that gets tested at foot level, horizontally, etc. It will go over a sharp edge, and basically what we're trying to do is we're still making sure that force of the shock pack will be below 6 kilonewtons. Okay, so the rope will stay intact, no damage at all whatsoever, so there's no risk of the rope breaking. But most importantly, when it actually catches the user, it's still going to catch them and reduce that force to safe load on the body. Okay, so on the icons themselves, we will have it on the label, and we'll just show you that in a second. We can just drop the sides for a second. We will just then show you very closely how that lanyard looks. So you just show the standard ones. If you take that up to the camera, and then what I'll do is I'll put the sharp edge above it, so you can just kind of see the difference in the size of the shock pack for the sharp edge tested lanyard. It's quite a bit bigger. Again, we're just helping. It's still the same size of 1.75 meters. However, the webbing, if you just flip it for me, is a lot wider and thicker. Okay. Obviously, we have the green rope with the white stitch and the black stitching. Again, good for inspection purpose. But what this has is with the green and the black, that's got anti-cut fabric in it. So again, when it goes over that sharp edge, that's not going to be damaged anyway. Okay. But so the main feature is to think about is force. So when we test these lanyards, it has to be below 6 kilonewtons. That's what's deemed safe when it catches somebody, and that's what's then deemed safe for the user to be caught with that. Obviously, with the standard, you can't guarantee that that's going to happen, and also you can't guarantee the rope's going to survive it. Okay. For me, we can just bring the slides back up. Okay, so this is the example of how the label of the lanyard will look. Obviously, we've got the sharp edge icon, it's quite clear as day, and obviously below that you've got the standards that it meets, which obviously we have the sharp edge standard in there. Okay, just as a little visual on all products now, if your product is sharp edge tested, you're going to have the standard on there. Again, we've added the icon ourselves, but obviously the most important thing to see on there is obviously the CMB /P/11-074. Long number, but obviously quite important. That needs to be on there to know this product has been sharp edge tested. Okay. All right. So just a slide again for when you go back to this later on. The slides will be there of just the difference of the sharp edge lanyard compared to the standard. We obviously have it as a single and a twin version, as we do with all our full rest lanyards. But just to explain, it's got the anti-cut rope, it's got the standard, and then talking about the dynamic test. So the braking force doesn't exceed 6 kilonewtons when tested with a free fall of 4 meters. And then that below that, obviously you can see it's then done at a right angle as well. Okay, so that right angle is done with a lateral offset of 1.5 meters. And again, that will just make sure that the subject doesn't experience more than 6 kilonewtons during the fall. See, I see there's questions coming through, and I appreciate that. And as I said, at the very end, we will go back through all of these. We've got about 10 minutes for a Q&A at the end. So all the questions that come through, we will go through and answer. Okay. So the full rest blocks. So this is probably the more slightly confusing one on the market, because you always see these blocks being used. A lot of the time you will see them being used connected to things like LC Pershers, formwork for hangman systems, etc. And obviously we need to think about, are these then being used horizontally? Where are they being connected? Do people sometimes not look above them? They don't have anything above them to connect with, so then they're then using a standard block that's been tested purely for vertical use, using as horizontal. Okay, so from the icons, obviously you can see both are being used 40-degree max vertically, and both can be used for vertical use. But obviously it's the block with the VG11 standard that can be used horizontally. All right. So it's in standard 360, vertical use only, can't be used over a sharp edge, can't be used horizontally. Okay. So the way the product label looks, again, for the specific block you have, it will tell you what the differences are. So all the icons are included. Obviously, we also have weight limits differences depending if they can be used at sharp edge, horizontal, obviously feet level. So for this particular block, this is the mini block, which we'll show you in a second. It's 100 kg for horizontal over a sharp edge at full factor 2. But when you are using it above head height in a vertical use situation, it is 140. Again, all little things to be thinking about when you're using this type of equipment. Can we jump slides, please? And what we'll do first is we'll focus on the two big blocks, because you will notice the difference pretty quick of what they are. So you want to hold this one for me, Harry? So what we have here is I've got just a 10-meter standard block, and Harry has a 5-meter, which has been used, tested for horizontal and sharp edge use. Straight away, if you just hold that up, Harry. Big difference on the two products. Is the sharp edge lanyard obviously has the shock absorbing pack there. Okay, standard block doesn't, so it works like a seatbelt, locks off, absolutely fine, user keeps moving. This one moves freely, works exactly the same way, locks off, but obviously can also be done You hold it down by your chest for me. Can be done horizontal. Like that. Okay. Obviously, in here we have the shock absorbing pack. And obviously, this is the key difference for it to be able to safely catch the user going over a sharp edge. So when we go over a sharp edge, obviously there's going to be a little bit of slippage with the blocks. The blocks coming out, the user's gone over a sharp edge, recording the right angle, and it's going to catch you, something like that. Obviously, with that, chances are it's going to slip a bit before it catches you. Once it then catches you, because it's slipped a little bit, there's going to be a lot more force in that fall, which is why we have the shock absorbing pack, which will then deploy as it does for a 4S lanyard. Standard block doesn't have that. So if you can just stop that one there for a second. Okay. So what we'll do is I'll show you the horizontal use again. So bear in mind this block doesn't have, or hasn't been tested for horizontal or sharp edge use. However, it will still catch the person in a horizontal, okay? The reason obviously we can't use it and it will catch you is because the force that's going to generate when it goes over an edge, where it goes over that 90-degree angle of the person, that slippage will result into the force being more than 6 kilonewtons. You also can't guarantee this wire will even be able to hold that or withstand that sort of force over an edge, over a sharp edge. Okay? That's obviously where shock pack comes into play. Okay. Hopefully that will make sense. As I say, all the blocks potentially will catch you. The difference is the force that fall is going to create, whether or not you need the horizontal use, whether or not you need the vertical use. Okay. Again, label itself. Don't know how well this is going to come up, but you've got all the icons on there where it can be used horizontally, where it can be used over a sharp edge, depending on the product. Hopefully it picks up on the camera. I've not tried this, but you can just see where my finger is there. You've got the sharp edge, and we've got a big red tick by that. And then we also have the horizontal use here. So any block you use should have all the markings on. And this isn't just JSP blocks, by the way. All blocks on the market should have the icons to determine what can be used horizontally and what can't be. Obviously, the key thing being the standard. I'll show you in a second. But just as a visual, it's always nice to see. So just on the small one here, should be able to see a little bit better. You've got multiple standards down here. Hopefully it focuses. I don't know if it is it? You've got multiple standards, which you've got the CMB there as well. Okay, I want to bring the slides back up. Because if you didn't see it, we've obviously now got it in front of us as well. Okay. So all green ticks to full factor 2, horizontal use over a sharp edge. Obviously, standard blocks aren't going to have that on there. Okay. So that's where we need to look at our kit. What have we got? What are we using on site? How are the guys using it? Are they using it horizontally? Is that particular block they're using being tested for horizontal use? Has it been tested to the specific standard it needs to be? Obviously, we can't help with that. That's really all down to how your workers are using the equipment and what they've got, and are they using it correctly? We're obviously happy to advise where we can, but really it's down to you guys to be knowing, have we got the correct kit for the jobs that we need to do? Okay. So just as a visual there, that's all our types of sharp edge tested horizontal. So we've got 2 versions of the Mini. Mini being this one. It's the Mini version. Mini version with a scuff hook. And then we have the 2 bigger versions, which we have in 5 and 10 meters. So currently just 5 and 10 in horizontal use, but we do in the vertical go up to 20 meters again. So it's some stuff to think about. If you need something that's a little bit longer, can you use that longer block over an edge? Is it going to create too much force, etc., etc.? That's where we are currently with the testing. We can only get up to 10 meters. Anything higher than that, we just can't pass the test just because the force that it creates. Obviously, as the block gets bigger, the internal parts get bigger. Obviously, it becomes harder to catch. Then, obviously, over a sharp edge, it becomes even harder to catch on top of that. Okay. Okay. So obviously what these is the cause for sharp edge tested products. Something to think about. Obviously, when we say sharp edge, we could be talking about anything from going over horizontal, doesn't necessarily have to be a sharp edge, but when we're thinking about is where a lanyard is coming 90 degrees, okay? So where it could cause damage to the product. So I've got a couple of examples here of obviously guys that are using full rest blocks, just standard full rest blocks. Obviously the guy on the roof, he has actually got an extension lanyard connected to that. His obviously block's not high enough. We can already see that's going to be above 40 degrees once he wants to get to the edge of the roof. Once he then goes over it, he's then going to obviously bring into play sharp edge because his block is already above the 40-degree recommended for full rest blocks. Okay, he's obviously then got the extension lanyard as well, which obviously will cause extra force. Again, has that extension lanyard actually been tested with the block to know that you can use it safely? The way those extension lanyards work is obviously they tend to be about 30 centimeters long, but they will cause extra force to the fall. Obviously, if it's not been tested together, you can't guarantee that that's actually going to work. Again, even if it was an edge tested block, has that 30 centimeter lanyard been tested to go over a sharp edge if you go into? You can see what the guy's working on. If he falls, chances are he's going to hit something sharp on the way down. Okay. Obviously, the other picture, we've got a guy up on top of a lorry. Obviously, it's always difficult work, isn't it, when we're on top of lorries about how we do it. But obviously, again, they've got the block a lot higher, but the way he's walking, it's going to really go past that 40 degrees that we allow. And again, it needs to be really thinking about horizontal use. Okay. So obviously, full factors come into play when we're thinking about sharp edges. So briefly to discuss full factors. Full factor 0 is obviously always your safest port of call. You're connecting above head height. When you fall, you're not going to fall as far because you don't have to fall the length of the lanyard. B is so full factor 1. So that's when we're thinking about connecting at waist level. Full factor 2 is obviously the worst. We advise you being able to do that is connected at foot level. So you have to fall the length of the lanyard before the lanyard even catches you, which most commonly is where we're going to come in with sharp edge tested lanyards. So what we have to think about is a full factor 2. So can you just get back to the full factor 2 is where we're going to come into things with the diagram in the top left corner. So obviously the person's connected at foot level, trying to get to a satellite dish. Fortunately, they haven't accounted for the window in the roof. The user's obviously fallen through, and as you can see in the diagram, he has fallen at a proper 90-degree angle, which, depending on whatever he's fallen through there, he would need the sharp edge tested lanyard because he's going to hit over that 90 degrees. Okay. Don't know if we can show that. Is there a way to show that? To hold that in for me. So say I'm connected here, gone and this is how I've ended up. It doesn't really matter what you've hit for that to be. It doesn't even need to be sharp. Chances are it's going to cause a bit of damage to a standard rope. Okay, so it could just be a flat brickwork, anything like that, for example. It could even be grooved off. It could be smooth. If you fall at that, you are going to hit sharp edge. I don't know if that's showing it well enough, but hopefully you can all understand how that would work. Okay. So obviously the picture in the bottom left, we've got somebody who's got satellite dish. He obviously has fallen. he's obviously connected a lot higher up in this scenario. So he is actually probably connected at what we would call a full factor 0. So probably the best possible answer. Again, you can see from what he's connected to, he is still going to hit that sharp edge. And ideally, you would want to be assured that what he's connected to is going to withstand that impact of that corner of effectively a building in that case. Once he goes over, he just wants the lanyard to catch him and hope that nothing else will break. On the other side, we have the person that's got to the corner of the roof. So you think back to the beginning of the presentation, where the video, guy's gone to the corner, he's now working in the corner, but he can obviously fall off either edge. Again, because he's connected at foot level, as soon as he goes over either edge, he's going to have the chance of swinging. Again, swinging, you're going to be swinging on an edge. That edge might be sharp, it might break a standard rope. Obviously, again, you need to think about sharp edge tested lanyards in that scenario. And again, obviously, all blocks, horizontal use blocks will come into play with this as well. Okay. I think that is really it for now. As I say, I apologise. We obviously have going over the 20 minutes. But yeah, we'll open it up to any more questions that you want to fire through. Obviously, don't want to make this too complicated because I appreciate we join these things. If it's too complicated, we join it, we come off and we think, what did I just watch? What do I need to go through again? And that's obviously where we will record, repost, and obviously you can all have access to it again. Okay. So obviously going through some of the questions from the very beginning. So why hasn't this been implemented then? So obviously introducing the standard, this is where it's now coming into play, that eventually this will probably be the industry standard. Everything will need to be tested to a sharp edge in terms of lanyards. Obviously, fall arrest blocks are different because standard fall arrest blocks, a lot of the time you're just connected directly above you. So chances of needing it for a sharp edge is different. But again, if you need it for horizontal use, that's always going to need the sharp edge testing. As I say, I'd imagine even here, for example, at one point we'll get rid of the standard fall arrest lanyards and we'll only have sharp edge tested lanyards because of that. Obviously, because it's so new, the standard is so new, there's still a limit on the type of lanyards available. So obviously we all like the elastic style lanyard, the stretchy. We've all seen these before. Obviously, the fall arrest lanyard, the shock pack is inside the webbing here. There's not one currently that's been tested to go over the sharp edge. So again, you'll be taking out a lot of personal preference for what people want to use. And you just drop the best thing for me. So we got the flat webbing, but this is an adjustable version, so it adjusts from 1.4 to 2 meters in total length. But obviously this flat webbing, see there, hasn't been designed to be used over a sharp edge. And from the flip side of that, this is currently the only adjustable fall arrest lanyard that we have, which again, we need adjustable versions in certain scenarios. So we kind of have to have this lanyard, even though it's not been completely tested to over a sharp edge. Okay. So it all comes down to different types of work, depending on which types of lanyards you need. Obviously, I appreciate you don't want 20 different types of different lanyards for it to go. The blocks, in this sense, it's going to be impossible to make that as the industry standard because a lot of the blocks, as I say, if you're using a vertical use block, a lot of the times they will just be connected above you and you've got something to connect them to. Obviously, what we have to think about is if you don't have that, that's when you would need horizontal use blocks. Okay. Fill an industry briefing is required on this standard. Absolutely. We're obviously happy to help with anything like that. In terms of the standards themselves, it's called the VG11 group. From the presentation, you will notice the standard numbers are in there. So you're able to go back and you'll be able to see specifically what they are. And then you can actually do a little bit of research yourselves. But it is very important information. Obviously, you do need to know what the products are tested and how they are. Are you open to having a briefing session done at site level to raise the awareness of this matter? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what I'm here at JSP. I'm here to help with all technical support on all types of products. It's my day to day. I will go to sites. I can deliver toolbox talks. Obviously, help sell the equipment as well. But from my point of view, I'm here as the technical aspect for working at height. So help share this sort of knowledge. Help share the difference between full arrest and restraint. We have full training teams that can go out to sites as well, which can deliver all types of your basic work at height training, anything up to more in-depth level like rescue inspection. If you wanted us to introduce something like sharp edge awareness and stuff like that, we can obviously look at that too. Okay. So how to trigger shock absorber, so impact force. So you would never be able to pull a shock pack. I don't know if anybody's ever tried. That for me. If me and Harry would try and pull it together, you've got no chance of that shock pack deploying. So when we're testing this specific pack will be taken to 200 kilos of force, and it will not deploy at 200 kilos of force. So we're talking about the weight of a user on impact will make that deploy. Again, during testing, if it was to deploy at 200 kilograms of force, it would fail. Okay. As a full lanyard, how long will the shock absorber when fully deployed? Okay, yeah. So on the shock pack itself, so this might be a little bit difficult to read. Hopefully we will be able to see it, but we're concentrating on the little red text at the bottom there. Basically what that's saying is the length of the lanyard is 2 meters. When fully deployed, there is an extra 1.75 meters inside the shock pack that could come out. Okay. Again, we're thinking about the 6.75 meter, the full distance you need beneath you. That is obviously the same with sharp edge and just standard full arrest lanyards. In terms of ranging sessions, yep, contact myself, absolutely fine. And then from there, we can look at whether we're looking at just some awareness, site visits, or we're actually looking at in-depth training. I believe my colleague's going to put my email address into the chat now, so you have my details if you want to contact me directly. From there, obviously, feel to use me, call me, contact me, however you want, and we can go from there, really. If we've got any other questions, now's the time. Otherwise, we'll probably close it down. We'll just give you 1 more minute. I appreciate we have now. Hopefully we're all good. Okay. Brilliant. I hope that was informative for everybody. As I say, we will be posting everything out. If you have any questions afterwards, obviously you now have my details directly. Feel free to contact and get in touch, and absolutely fine. Obviously, as we mentioned at the start, if anybody wasn't here, next session we'll cover, Harry will be looking at Power Cap Infinity, and that will be in October. Otherwise, thank you very much for your time this morning, and hope you have a good day.